Welcome into WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock, Jeff Upson with you here, recapping the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic. Also had an exciting weekend with the NHSCA National matchups from freshman all the way to senior. And plus, we got the redemption coming up, Jeff. We got the lineup. We're going to talk a bit about that as well. So we got a full pack show. Hard to believe we do, considering wrestling season, as far as the actual season go, has wrapped up, and we just got some of these all-star events, but some really good wrestling from this past weekend.
Well, I mean, just look outside. It doesn't. It looks like wrestling season. I mean, it's snowing. There's snow on the ground. The roads are kind of crap in some places, so it kind of feels like we're just getting into wrestling season a little bit. But Greg, we had a phenomenal weekend at the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic. It was a great time, great experience. I think all the kids and their families had a phenomenal time there. We'll talk a little bit more about the logistics of it and how everything went, but overall, a lot of good wrestling. And of course, the National High School Coaches Association had their nationals, and Pennsylvania did very well there. So I'm looking forward to this weekend because we got some more good wrestling coming up this weekend. Up in State College, there's going to be a lot of good matches going down, and we're going to talk about a little of them tonight.
Well, let's first start with the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic. Always such a great event, and took place at Peters Township High School. I guess first and foremost, Jeff, we hit on this last week on the show before we get into the actual match recap. How was the venue with Peters Township? Could you see it coming back there, or do you think this is a one-year type thing?
Well, I mean, like we talked about last week, it really depends on Pitt. So like we our first choice is always the field house. We couldn't get the field house this year. So for all those folks out there wondering why that the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic was not at Pitt, we couldn't secure the field house. So our options were to move it to another date, which we are pretty much locked into the date that we're on because you have so many other things going on. You have freestyle season starting. You have teams that just don't want to delay it any longer. We have to pretty much do it right after the PA state tournament because other states have been off the mat for several weeks. Like Indiana, for example, they hadn't wrestled, I think, for a month. So we're kind of locked into the weekend that we have it. So I definitely could see it going back there, depending on what happens with Pitt. I thought it was a phenomenal location. You know, it reminded me of Rec Hall. So if you've ever been to Rec Hall up in Penn State, that's what Peters Township with the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic reminded me of. Are there things that we could improve upon? 100%. There's definitely some things that we could do a little bit differently. But all in all, for the first year there, I said it was one of the best classics I've been in attendance for. And there was a lot of fans there. It was basically standing room only. The crowd was into it. And why I say it's like Rec Hall is because the fans are kind of on top of each other, and they're kind of, when you're on the mat and you're on the benches, you can kind of feel the fans breathing down your neck. When there's a big move or, when Jackson Arrington got tossed, I mean, everybody in the arena just screamed and, gasped a little bit. And you could feel that, right? I'm not saying you don't get that at the field house, but it's a little bit further away. It's a little bit more removed. I don't think it devalues the event by the fact that it's at Peters Township. I know there are some people that disagree, but those are people that probably have never put on a wrestling event of this caliber. It's really, really hard to pull off an event like this. When you talk about getting all the kids in on flights, it's a lot. So I was really happy with Peters Township overall, Greg. I thought it was a good job by the staff there, and I think the committee, we all kind of worked together to make this happen.
And always doing a great job. The committee does, yourself included. I'll give you a pat on the back, Jeff. But always a great, great outing. No matter, honestly, I think you can put it in any location. It's just such great wrestling that, the kids, speak for themselves. It's, they make that event, and they definitely, came out ready to wrestle. You look at the two matches. You mentioned Indiana hadn't wrestled in a month. The WPIAL, fresh off of a great performance at the state tournament, came ready to wrestle, and they showed it. They win 35-6. with Team Indiana only winning 2 of the matches. And really, it was not only just the wins, but they were dominant wins too by the WPIL. Started at 120 pounds, Troy Homan of Penn Trafford, and then the Waynesburg boys, Xander Fatoros and Colton Stone King, all getting decisions. Actually, Homan getting a major decision, 14-6, to really just open things up for the WPIL.
Yeah, and I caught a lot of flack for kind of saying on last show that the WPIAL team was going to kind of smack the Indiana team. So I get there on Thursday, and I started talking with some of the Indiana folks. Joe Caprino, a guy who runs Indiana Mat, which is also on Rockfin. He's a great guy. I've known him and the work that he does, and we're talking, and I can sense that he's like, he wants to say something, and I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, well, you pretty much said we were going to get murdered. And I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about? And then he pulls up the clip, and he's like, this may or may not have went out to all of the Team Indiana. And on it, I say something like, no disrespect to Team Indiana, but, the WPIAL's going to have their way with them, kind of. I don't know what exactly I said, but it was something along those lines. And so at the banquet later that night, I'm like, Indiana's mean mugging me. They're all, the team's just looking at me like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, look, I don't know the Indiana guys other than the guys on the USA team. And really outside of that, I just said the WPIAL team's really good. It's one of the best ever we've had. We've had a few state champions, which doesn't always happen because normally they're on the PA team. So
Yep.
I just said it could get ugly. Well, you know what, Indiana, you owe me an apology because it did get ugly. All right, the WPIAL came out and just absolutely dominated. And to be honest with you, I mean, there was obviously a few matches that could have went either way, but the matches that the WPIAL lost, the two really tight ones with Bell Vernon wrestlers at 170, Brody Porter won 7-4 or 6-4 in overtime, and then Cole Waitman loses 4-3 in the last seconds. Those matches were very winnable. But like you said, the WPIAL just didn't win some of these matches. They were blowing them out. So, I mean, it got ugly. Let's just put it that way, Greg.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you look at those first 3, Ambrose Bonai, Central Valley getting a fall. You look at, Pletcher, Jack Pletcher gets a win, Kellen Laffey gets a win, Jared Kessler with O'Connellsville had the big win over Jay Conway. That was probably the highlight matchup, right, at 160, and Kessler gets it done. So you look at that much before you get to Logan Hoffman and his overtime loss. The match was over at that point. But then you had wins from Patrick Kutchhammer, Brian Finnerty, Billy McChesney to wrap it up. I mean, you're right on in saying the WPIAL. This is one of, if not the strongest teams the WPIAL's had. I mean, every one of these guys is a state medalist and like a couple state champions in there, Kessler and Finnerty. I mean, it's tough to top this team.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's no disrespect to Indiana, but I knew that the WPIAL team was bringing some hammers, right? And I looked at throughout the lineup, and I'm thinking like, I don't see any breathing room for these. I thought Jay Conway and Jared Kessler was the marquee matchup. I think we talked about that. 2-time state champ from Indiana versus a 1-time state champ in Kessler. And there were some guys that really impressed me. Brian Finnerty looked really, really good. And I asked him afterwards, I was like, how does it feel wrestling someone your weight? And he says, those mat returns feel a lot easier. He said, man, lifting up those mat returns on guys weighing 220 versus guys that are 195, completely different. I thought Jack Pletcher looked really good. Ambrose Bonnie looked really solid. Major decision, then gets a fall. So, yeah, overall, it was pure domination for the WPIAL. And I kind of called it, but these guys are all going to go on to do good things. And shout out to Indiana because they came. I mean, they were all super super nice. I really enjoyed hanging out with the Team Indiana folks. Their coaching staff and their liaison Joe Caprino. It was a lot of fun. They'll be back, right? They'll be back. And I said, look, you have two of your best guys that are on the USA team. So obviously you have those two on the team. It's a little bit different. And maybe this wasn't their best. Maybe it wasn't their best team. But the WPIAL did what the WPIAL does.
And then you go into the main event and started out with the girls matchup, which was awesome. Grace Stem of Bald Eagle area getting the 10-6 win, and then Mason Leaphart of Dover gets things started with a big 6-2 victory over Joey Cruz.
Yeah, so the girls match, Grace Stem, she had been on the card for a while now, but Skylar Carnegie, she was actually a late fill-in. So, in fact, when we were on the show, we weren't talking about her because she wasn't on. She was a late replacement. I think 2-3 days in advance, she had, and she took the matchup. She sang the national anthem, and she did it wonderfully. She was, I mean, one of the best I've heard. And she goes out and battles. She throws Grace Stem in the first like 5 seconds. We're in the locker room. We run out, and all of a sudden we see Grace is down. We're like, what happened? And they're like, she was nearly pinned. Like 99.9% of the people that were in that position would have been pinned. So she fights back, comes back, wins a tight match 10-6. But you're right, Mason Leaphart at 120. Look, I've watched Mason Leaphart wrestle for the last 4 years. And Mason is a quiet, reserved young man, always very respectful. After this match, he was going around the bench slapping people and high-fiving everybody. And I was like, for 4 years, you didn't see any emotion. And then you saw it, right? It was so cool to see that for Mason Leaphart, a guy who, he didn't have the finish to a season that he wanted. He wanted to win a state title, loses to Vinny Kilkeary. And, gets kind of taken care of a little bit in that match. He came out and beat the number one guy in the nation, Joey Cruz. It was fun, man. That was a fun match, and Mason really game planned well for that match because he had kind of he looked at what Joey Cruz does and was able to capitalize on some things, which ultimately won the match for him.
And with that hot start, it looked like Team PA maybe in cruise control a bit, but then the Team USA comes back in a big way. Jake Van D drops a 7-2 decision. Brandon Chaletsos of Notre Dame GP drops an 8-3 decision, and then Briar Priest gets majored 21-7. So Team USA kind of catches up a bit and then takes a 4-point lead.
Yeah, so I mean, we knew those 3 weights were going to be tough, right? If we could steal 20 and get some points on the board there, we thought if we could limit the damage between 26 and 38. I thought Seltzer and Brandon Kletos was a toss up match, and Brandon he got tossed, he got headlocked. And afterwards, he was like, yeah, that was a pretty nasty headlock. I mean, but that changes the dynamic of the match, right? I mean, now you're down, you're down big. You have to chip away. So that kind of negated any sort of chance of him winning. Spratley he just kind of picked apart Van D a little bit. He was really impressive because Van D's no slouch. But Jesse Mendez, 21-7 on Briar Priest. I mean, just think about this in theory, right? Okay, Pearson Manville wins a state title, beats Briar Priest in tiebreaker. Jesse Mendez, number one in the nation, beats him 21-7 and makes him look silly. Briar Priest is a Division I recruit, and Jesse Mendez just tore through him. Jesse Mendez, what my biggest takeaway for Team USA was Jesse Mendez could probably be All-American next year if he finds a lineup. He's going to be really, really good because Briar Priest he's not chopped liver, right? And Jesse Mendez just made him look funny and sometimes.
Yeah, 2-time state finalist, 1-time state champ, tiebreaker away from being a 2-time state champion in Pennsylvania. Briar Priest we've enjoyed watching him grow and, come from where he was as a freshman to win, a state title and be a finalist the following year. But yeah, to be majored like that, that's impressive for Mendez. So then the WPIAL, the Team PA, Finn Sullivan gets a huge win over Caleb Larkin to cut it within 1. And now you're looking at this lineup, Jeff, after Finn Sullivan's win, and you got to be thinking, hey, we're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I mean, after Finn won, we got really excited because we're like, all right, we knew coming down the line, we were pretty strong in those upper weights, right? We knew that we had some of our heaviest hitters coming up at the upper weights, so we were feeling really good after Finn Sullivan got that win. That was an amazing win for him. Caleb Larkin is really tough. He's crafty, and Finn Solomon found a way to get the win, and that really pumped up the crowd. He gets really excited. He starts pumping his fists a little bit, and that was a lot of fun. But then the wind in our sails, man, just got thrown away. And you always say, what if? What if Jackson Arrington does not give up a fall there? And I'll say this, those two wrestled at Flo's Who's Number One, and Jackson was able to get a win there. It was a tight match, no doubt. We knew it was going to be a good high level match, and I watched this sequence at least 15 times when I got home, because I'm just thinking, like, how in the hell did Hunter Garvin? Because if you go back and watch it, Greg, Jackson Arrington is in on a double, right? Clean double, nothing really to it, nothing like he's not doing anything too crazy. But the way that Hunter Garvin was able to get it was almost like Bo Nickel and Miles Martin back in the NCAA tournament, where Miles Martin's taking down Bo Nickel. Next thing you know, Bo Nichols is pinning him for the win. It was very reminiscent of that. Jackson was that was a tight match. It was a back and forth match, but Jackson, I think, was in the driver's seat a little bit, and then Hunter just comes out, and that really hurt, right? That was a dagger, and because you flip that around, right? So Jackson wins, right? Instead of giving 6 to USA, we give 3 to PA. That changes the whole complexity of the match, right? The whole complexity of the match. Even if things go the way that they did, we're still winning that match. So, that one hurt for sure.
Yeah, because what you reverse that 9-point swing is 24-19. Team PA wins. So yeah, that was definitely the swing for sure. But I'll tell you, even with that pin, Team PA still had its chances. Levi Haynes gets the big win, which I think a lot of people expected. Nolan Lear gives up a decision, which I think people expected. But then you have Jack Waymeyer, Max Stout, Dayton Pitzer, Nick Feldman. I mean, you got 4 quality wrestlers who could all pick up wins, and they go 2-2. If Team PA wins 3 of those, they win the match.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because this happens every year, right? Every year we're back there scheming, like, all right, we got a chance here, and I got to give a shout out to David Taylor. He was, a lot of times when we have like an honorary coach or something, they're there and they're they enjoy it, but David Taylor was, I mean, he's like taking notes. He's like, all right, I think this guy is good in this position, and he's coaching every single kid like they're his own kids, right? At one point he came back and he's like, we're still in this, like we're not out of this, and I'm thinking, all right, maybe we are, and even after that, Levi Haynes, Aiden Riggins, that was a big match. Levi Haynes, he's a little banged up. He's probably going to end up going under the knife here in a little bit to fix up some of his knee. But he came out and beat Aiden Riggins in a really good match, 7-3. He really pulled away kind of late there. But Nolan Lear, you had mentioned Matt Singleton. I thought Matt Singleton was probably going to get a major on Nolan Lear, to be honest with you. So the fact that Nolan only gave up a decision on him, I was like, chalk that's a win for us, man, because Matt Singleton's one of the best in the nation. Nolan Lear, he's good, but he's not nationally ranked, right?
Yep.
He got beat up by Rune Lawrence a little bit, so I was expecting a little bit more than just 3 there, so I thought that was big. And then Jack Waymeyer, man, he was really damn close to winning that match against Clayton Whiting. It just wasn't. And part of it, I think, was the fact that Jack he didn't have a full season. He was coming back from injury. His just, I think he wasn't used to being in that type of position. And, he unfortunately gave up some points late that ended up giving Clayton the win there. But that was a 50-50 match, in my opinion. That could have went either way. But so could 195. If you go back and watch that, Maxed Out wins 7-5 against Rylan Rogers. Maxed Out got a very favorable call on the edge for a takedown. I mean, I looked over to some of the Pennsylvania guys and we were like, that's not a takedown. But, I mean, Hey, Ryland had his chance to come back from that, and Mac deservedly he wrestled really well. But there was definitely a little bit of a controversy on that call.
Then you look at 220 pounds. Dayton Pitzer had already beaten TJ Stewart once, and it was his only challenging match, right, of all of the season, because he pinned every other person he wrestled except for TJ Stewart in the Powerade final. Yet he doesn't get it done. He loses 4-3, and that's another one of those matches that 50-50 could have went either way, and Pitzer wins. Team PA wins.
Yeah, so even after giving up that major fall for Hunter Garvin, which we definitely weren't expecting there, and I think I said that on the show last week, Greg. I think I said something's going to happen that no one expected, right? I don't think many people picked or predicted Jackson Arrington getting pinned, right? Like that's probably not one of the things that you say is going to happen, right? So there's this is just historically every single year at the Classic, something like Hunter Garvin pinning Jackson Arrington happens. It's like clockwork. But TJ Stewart and Dayton Pitzer, that was a toss-up match. We saw it at Powerade tournament. That was an overtime match. This time around, though, TJ Stewart, he doesn't take bottom. He takes neutral in the third period. Dayton Pitzer was, he was in on some shots. TJ Stewart is so good. I mean, he got low center of gravity. He was just heavy hips. He was able to defend. And to be honest with you, he used his level and was able to, I mean, you know how tall Dayton is compared to TJ is. He used that kind of disadvantage to his advantage by getting to his legs a whole heck of a lot. I mean, Dayton was spending a lot of time fighting off attacks from TJ Stewart. So I give credit where credit's due. TJ Stewart game planned this match really well. And credit to him because he found a way to win. And Mark Billett and I were talking about this, and we're just like on the way back, we're just like, I can't believe Dayton lost. Like, he had been so good that I think we just kind of forgot that he was human, right? And TJ Stewart is certainly no slouch. So, but again, that's a toss-up match. Even if we lose 20 or 195, we win 82 and 220. We're still winning that dual meet overall.
Yeah, and obviously Nick Feldman gets the big pin to keep it close. But you mentioned the the loss for Jackson Arrington being the surprise. I mean, Mason Leaphart, getting his win. I think no one probably expected that. You talked about some of the swing matches. You don't get Waymeyer, you don't get Pitzer. You do get Finn Sullivan's win, which some may say Caleb Larkin's probably going to win that match. So there's a lot of those in between matches that you don't really know what's going to happen. And yeah, you do get the Arrington one that you were shocked by, but you also get Leaphart, which was a good thing for PA.
Yeah, and again, that's a reason why. So he won the Outstanding Wrestler Award for Team Pennsylvania, and Mendez won it for the USA, rightfully so.
Yep.
And the Turning Point Award went to Hunter Garvin. It was so easy. It was like the easiest. It was the easiest award selection for us. Normally we like all huddle together, and it was like everyone knew the awards beforehand. It was the quickest thing we've ever done. So. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. The place was rocking. We were in a hotel last year, right? We were in a hotel the year before that. We didn't have it. So really, this is the first time in almost 3 years that we actually got to have the Classic in front of fans. And it just felt really good. It was a lot of fun. I think the kids had a lot of fun. I hear a lot of people on social media say, "Oh, these kids, they'll never get to experience the field house. How can you do that to these kids? It's such a disservice." Ask every single one of those kids. 52 kids, I think we had 50, 52. Ask every single one of them if they felt like they were, slighted because they weren't at the field house. I guarantee you, none of them would say, "Yeah, I mean, I'm really pissed I didn't get to wrestle in the field house." No, man, these kids had a great time. The environment was great. So I'm really at my wit's end with these people out there, saying how, the sign on the side of the wall is what matters. It could be the nicest high school gym in the world, but if it doesn't say university or college forget about it. We're treating these kids like chopped liver, man. It's pisses me off. I'll just leave it at that, Greg.
Sometimes you just gotta ignore those critics, Jeff. That's all.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody's
No,
got them.
I have a hard time doing that though. I have a when you care about something so much and you're passionate about something like I am with the classic, you and none of these people. And here's my other. I'm gonna jump back on the soapbox. These people, a lot of them, don't understand that this is for charity, right? This is a nonprofit organization. All of the proceeds that we get are donated to the Boys and Girls Club of Western Pennsylvania. We do this to better people's lives that live in conditions or are part of society where they don't have the same opportunities as you and I. So one, it's for charity. Okay. Two, we are all doing this as volunteers, right? I mean, this is we do it because we love it. So for all those people that want to hate because they say it's not at the Pitt Fieldhouse, the only people that are really upset are Keith Gavin and co, which they should be, because before they could walk, they're on their own campus, right? Whereas now it's like if you're in Oakland, you got to travel out to Peters Township. So I get that, but I saw Frank Molinaro there from Arizona State. Okay, that's pretty far. I saw Vincenzo Joseph from Stanford. He was there. Saw Tom Ryan from Ohio State. He was there. They all seem to do just fine at Peters Township. But yeah, so I'm off my soapbox now. I apologize.
Hey, at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, great event. Committee did a wonderful job as always. No reason for anybody to really be upset about the location. Location sounded like it was phenomenal, and really just great wrestling. The kids got the opportunity to go out and shine and showcase their talents. And like you said, it's for charity at the end of the day. So, not like anybody's making money off this. At the end of the day, all money proceeds go to a great cause. So it's a win-win-win, and that's how we can leave it. Let's go to the next topic, Jeff. The NHSCA Nationals that happened this past weekend, and Team Pennsylvania, for the most part, did a great job. We'll talk about all of PA for the most part here. And you look at the freshman side at 106 pounds, Aaron Seidel of Northern Lebanon. He finished in second place. Nico Finella of Indiana bouncing back after, probably a disappointing state championship performance for him. He finishes in sixth place.
Yeah, I thought that was a good. He rattled off a few wins, big wins in the wrestlebacks there. I was a little surprised Aaron Seidel. I mean, Adrian DeJesus from New Jersey is tough, and Aaron Seidel, definitely obviously being a state champion, beating returning state champ. He's pretty good, but I guess I kind of took it for granted that he would probably walk through the bracket. But Nico Finella had a great tournament. Nathan Desmond absolutely dominated at 113 pounds. He's up from 106. We could potentially see him and Seidel wrestling in the very near future, potentially, so stay tuned for that. Aiden Grog from Saucon Valley, who had a great year this year for Saucon Valley, a team that had so many studs. He kind of, not saying he got forgotten, but he just, he wasn't the guy. Everyone, you had Jake Jones, you had Ryan Crookham, you had, Dante Mahaffrey, you had all these guys there, and Aiden Grog, I think, just, he had a great year though. He had a good season, ends it with a seventh place finish at 113 pounds. But my favorite, right? Everyone says I love him. Gage Botero from Faith Christian. He was absolutely dominant. He comes out and pins in the finals against Carlos Stanton of Arizona, pins him in 5:01 to win the title at 120 pounds. Tahir Parkins from Nazareth, he takes fourth, and Jason Torres from Malvern Prep, who's had a good season, but just kind of behind some studs, he took seventh. But not too bad. You have a guy in the finalist in the first three weight classes, and you have two champions out of those three. So now that was definitely a good showing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And obviously, Botero, I love watching him as well. I thought he had a phenomenal season. Parkins, I think, disappointed with his state performance as well, so getting a little revenge, getting in fourth place. You get down to 126, Chase Haunt of Faith Christian ends up in fourth place. But 132, how about the tournament for Colin Gaja, Quakertown? He defeats Vince Bozakis of Wyoming Seminary in the final, 4-2.
Yeah, Colin Guy is it's Guy, by the way.
Sorry.
It's okay. I mean, it's very rare that I fix pronunciations because I am the king. I mean, just ask the folks that are at the banquet. I had to be the master of ceremonies once again this year, and I definitely screwed up a few times. But Colin Guy, I mean, beats Vince Bazakis, who is, one of the best freshmen in the nation. Obviously, you win a Powerade title, finish ahead of guys like Dalton Perry, right, who won a state title. Colin has just been through the roof this year. I really, really like where he's heading and where he's going. I think he has a bright future ahead of him. He's going to have a few state titles before he leaves Quakertown. I have a feeling. Chase Hunt's another Faith Christian guy at 126. Look, Faith Christian Academy is going to be a force. They lose a few like Alderfer and Muzika, but they're reloading with a lot of talent coming up through. So look out for them. But Colin Guy, I think he's going to have a great offseason. Beating Vince Bazakis, who's really tough at 132, was very impressive. But even so, I look at 138, Anthony Avensky from Wyoming area. He had a great tournament too. He didn't have quite the end of his freshman season. I don't think he won it in Hershey, but he finished ahead of Cameron Milheim from Warrior Run, who is a guy he had battled back and forth with throughout the postseason. He ends up getting third here at the National High School Coach Association Freshman Nationals. And Ryan Beck from Redland, he takes eighth. Ryan Beck, I thought, had a good tournament. A guy who wasn't really – he was in the mix in the South Central Regional, but never a threat. So to see him come through to earn a medal here was impressive.
145 pounds, the WPIAL gets a medalist, and that's Ryan Salashi of Fraser. He finishes in 6th place. He had a great freshman season, Jeff, and was one that I think was an up-and-comer, continued to improve throughout the season, and shows it here with a 6th place finish.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those Fraser, I know Buck Watkins has a lot of young talent in the room, and he's always talking about the young guys that he has coming up, and Ryan was one of those guys. So for him to finish top 6 here, and a little bit of a deeper weight class too, was impressive. At 152, Pennsylvania had 2 medalists. Luke Sipes, boy, I mean, for him to get major decision, because Luke Sipes is tough, right? We know, we've seen him quite a few times this year. Luke Sipes is a guy who can hang with just about anybody. Dominic Bambanelli, how would you say that, Greg?
Bambanelli?
Bambanelli? Yeah, that sounds right. From Georgia. Major decision, 11-3 over Sipes. So, Sipes, I'm sure, wants to have that one back. Charlie Scanlon from Bethlehem Catholic takes 4th there. At 160, Luke Segalski from Faith Christian, another Faith Christian freshman, he takes 3rd there. Talon Hogan, Penridge, takes 6th. And Jared Rohn from Saucon Valley takes 8th. So, between District 1 with Faith Christian and Penridge and some other teams, District 1 had a pretty good showing here in the Freshman Nationals.
And going back to another WPIAL wrestler, Braden Welsh of Fort Cherry, he finishes in 5th place at 170 pounds.
Yeah, I thought he had a good tournament. He was a guy who was on our top incoming freshman report. And, I love that. I love going back and looking at our top incoming freshmen and seeing, if they finish where they finish, one in the state tournament, but also a tournament like this. And there wasn't many that were missed. In fact, I think there was only one that placed here that was not on our top incoming freshman list. 182, no Pennsylvania wrestlers were able to get into the top 8. 195, Nathan Crispell from Benton, he takes 4th. And then at 220, Luke Boylan from Burrell, who had a good year. He's one that I was really impressed with coming out of Burrell, because we kept on talking about how they needed to reload and regroup, and he was a really integral part to them having success as a team this year.
Yeah, and you look at how they are usually operate. It's usually those heavier weights where they tend to have some weak spots in the lineup. But to have Luke Boylan there for another 3 years, where he is just going to be an anchor for that team. And you see Burrow guys, right? Maybe 500, under 500 their freshman year, and then all of a sudden they're state medalists and state champs as a senior. So, to see a guy like Luke Boylan, who's already finishing top 6 in the nation at a tournament like this, as a freshman, I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. I mean, I could see him doing a lot of big things here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. And being in a room like Burrell doesn't hurt, right? So I don't think he can fit into your Burl shirt, but I think he can definitely do big things come the future. Peyton Kearns from Mifflin County, he takes sixth at 285 pounds, and that wraps up the freshman division. In the sophomore division, Aiden Smith from Notre Dame GP, he took fourth. He was a Powerade runner-up this year. He takes fourth at 106. No medalist at 130 or 113, but 120. It's the return of Mason Gibson from Bishop McCourt. Comes out with a major decision, 26-14. Yeah, Mason Gibson's doing kind of what we expected him to do. I think he had tech falls all the way up until the finals there. And I'm sure he's probably upset that he didn't get a tech fall in the finals, but Mason's doing what Mason does best, and that's score a lot of points. Mason Ziegler from Quakertown, another really tough sophomore that I really like. Didn't have the best of the end of the season for him, but he's battling some injuries, and he really gutted out a tough performance here at the sophomore nationals.
WPIAL does really well at 126 and 132. Gunnar Myers of Wallenpaupack finishes as the champion at 126, but Cooper Hornack of Burrell finishes in third. Andrew Binney of Cannon McMillan finishing in eighth, and then at 132, Blake Reiner of Trinity finishes in fourth place.
Yeah, I looked at Cooper Hornack, and I'm thinking, okay, you're up at 126. We saw him as low as 113, wrestled 120, and see how he can do. And Gunnar Myers, I was really impressed with him at Hershey. Cooper Hornack has had a good 2 seasons, and to finish where he did in the state at that weight class at 120, I was impressed with him. And Andrew Binney, he's never going to go away. Andrew Binney, I feel like, is just going to constantly come after you, and he's never out of a match. Always fights through, and I'm excited to see him next year, because I don't think we're going to see him unless he hits a major growth spurt. I mean, he went from 106 to 126. I don't think we're going to see him go up a whole lot more. So I'm excited to see how he's going to be his junior year, probably around the same weight class.
And then Blake Reiner of Trinity finishing off, getting to the state tournament with that fourth place finish at 132, 138 without a PA guy medaling, but 145. 7th and 8th place finishers Griffin Walliser of Central Mountain. He decisions Jake Daly of Bethlehem Catholic 8-7.
Yeah, those are 2 tough guys, and Walliser was able to end his season on a high note, getting a medal. But Jake Daly, he was another one that's like, where was he at? Because Bethlehem Catholic had all these studs, and here he was fighting for a spot, much like Cole Campbell at 113 pounds. Jake Daly was a guy battling for a spot in that lineup, ends up making it to the state tournament, loses to Jack Pletcher, and but him to get on the medal stand here, him and Griffin Walliser, 8-7 seemed like a pretty good match. The one weight that I was looking forward to was 152 with Connor Hare, because he had been so dominant inside of Pennsylvania, right? And to see him go outside of Pennsylvania and wrestle some guys from all across the nation, I was very curious to see how he would do, and he did not disappoint. He did a major decision in the finals, 11-3 over Seth Larson of Georgia. So Connor Hare, he's going to win a couple more state titles before it's all said and done.
160, Sean Taylor of West Allegheny wrestles another PA guy in the final, and that's Ryan Garvick, a Central Dauphin, and he beats him 8-2. And Dom Federici of Wyoming Seminary right there in third place. So 1-2-3 goes PA at 160.
Yeah, and Greg, do you remember that match from the state tournament? Sean Taylor and Ryan Garvick? Did you call that match?
I don't think I had that one, no.
Do you remember that match, though? Do you remember they wrestled in the quarterfinals?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Garvick was able to get the win there, and obviously Ryan goes on to the finals. I know Sean was super excited about getting that win over Garvick, because in his mind, he was the better wrestler in Hershey. He just didn't come out on top. So I'm sure this felt really good for him to get one back on him. Does it mean a whole lot? Not really, but I'm sure he feels pretty good. And Dom Federici, a guy who we had on our redemption dual card last year against Jude Swisher, he ends up third there. I'm excited to see what the future holds for him.
Cole Bartram of Northern York finishes in third at 170, and then 4 different place winners are 182. Calvin Leishman of Quakertown in third, Henry Baranowski of Wallenpaupack in sixth, Caleb Marzolino of Abington Heights in 7th, and he beats Gabe Davis of Berks Catholic 10-4 for 7th. Davis in 8th. A lot of PA guys here at 182.
Yeah, I'm glad you took that weight class because that's a lot of. I would have screwed up about 4 names, 2 schools during that one. It's interesting to me, Greg, because you see it at the NCAA tournament too. I think Pennsylvania is more known for our light to middleweights. Like I feel like we're not that well known for our upper middleweights and heavyweights. But you looked at the national tournament this year in the NCAA tournament. I mean, 197 was chocked full of Pennsylvania wrestlers.
Yeah.
And here you have it at the sophomore nationals, and 182 is full of Pennsylvania wrestlers, right? So just interesting because I don't think many people they don't think about that when they think about Pennsylvania. They don't think about those upper weights. But hey, we'll take it any way we can.
195, Tucker Belanaka of Muhlenberg finishes in 6th place. Brennan Morgan of Central Valley finishing in 7th place. And then just to round out the rest of the sophomore class, Chase Washington of Penridge, he finished in 7th, and Philip Tabassa of Malvern Prep finished in 7th at 285.
Yeah, I thought it was a great showing by Pennsylvania in the sophomore division. I know, those guys that won it, like Sean Taylor and Connor Hare, are excited, and Gunnar Myers, Mason Gibson. But the junior class was pretty darn good too. At 106, Luke Sirianni of Abington Heights, a guy who came in ranked pretty high in the state going into Hershey, he takes 4th here. Landon Machado from Delaware Valley, he takes 8th. But then Tyler Chappell, talk about the year he's had. I would say a little bit ups and downs for Tyler. And, I think when there's no pressure, when Tyler, he wrestles his best. And
Yes.
I think there was a little bit of pressure at the state tournament. And, he didn't perform to the level that we know he's capable of. I think that's plain and simple. But for him to come out and rebound and get a national title here at the Junior Nationals, I mean, that was huge, right? Because I think that shows really the capabilities that Tyler has and why, a team like Pitt is interested in him and bringing him into the team because it's all there. He just needs to kind of put it together.
Yeah, I mean, I think we said the same thing about Dylan, right? When the pressure comes on, he tends to, kind of clamp up a little bit, doesn't get to his offense, and doesn't really wrestle the way he should be. And I think Tyler was very similar in that approach, especially getting up there to Hershey, not wrestling the way he usually does. And so he opens up a little bit, shows it here, gets that title. And, I think the one thing with Dylan, right, is that he made it to 3 state finals but never got the state championship. Tyler, I think because of the fact he hasn't made it to the state finals, maybe next year he's committed to Pitt. He doesn't have that pressure of I keep losing in the state finals. Maybe he lets loose, and he'd be dangerous, right? If he lets loose next year, sky's the limit really for Tyler to be able to potentially win a state title.
Yeah, I mean, we can say that about a lot of guys too. I mean, we all know wrestling's a mental sport, right? I mean, it's so much. It plays such a factor into the success that you have on the mat. I can't tell you how many coaches, myself included, and say, man, he's doing so good in the practice room, but then gets out into the mat and it's like, where did that guy go, right? And yeah, Tyler's gonna be just fine. He's already committed to Pitt, so I think he's gonna be just fine. 120 pounds, Cale McIntyre from Becca, he takes 3rd. And Suleiman Ba from Kiski Prep, he was a national prep finalist a few years back. He takes 6th. We looked at 126, no state or no placers from Pennsylvania there, but Caden Milheim from Warrior Run, he takes 6th at 132, joining his brother Cameron on the podium at the National High School Coaches Association.
138, Cade Wernsberger of Meadowbrook Christian finishes in 7th. Andrew Harmon of Bethlehem Catholic also in 7th at 145. No one at 152, but 160. Jake Guilfoyle of Bishop McDevitt in 3rd, and Dominic Frontino of Shippensburg finishes in 7th place.
Yeah, and that's a guy who I think really wanted to have a good showing there is Jake Guilfoyle because he missed weight at the state tournament, right? And that was that was big. And clearly you see, I mean, he was down at 45, he's wrestling 60 here. That weight cut was probably pretty darn hard for him. But one thing you see is a lot of Bethlehem Catholic guys. You mentioned Andrew Harmon at 145. Bethlehem Catholic ain't going away, right? They're going to have a lot of good talent for years to come. Frontino, I think, maybe a little bit disappointed in his performance, but I think he'll have a chance to redeem himself. Tyler Withers, Gettysburg, he finishes in 7th at 170, wrestles a guy from Mannheim Central, so didn't have to travel far, or he did have to travel far to wrestle somebody in his own district. He beats Barbush by fall in 44 seconds, but the one that I got to give a special shout out to was Matt Furman from Canamac. He takes out the number 1 seed wearing a PA Power singlet. So I'm assuming that's the reason why it happened.
Oh, of course.
And then he goes on to win a title over Justin Griffith of New Jersey, who's a very tough wrestler. He beats him in sudden victory 3-1. So I'm assuming that I'm the reason why he won, right? I mean, that's kind of what I can deduce out of that.
Wow. I mean, I didn't know you were all PA Power. I didn't know, me and Tristan and TC.
Tristan hasn't showed up to anything in 4 years. I don't know who Tristan
else
is.
On PA Power? Dyson. All of us are just chopped liver apparently, right?
That's the 3rd time we've said chopped liver on the show, and I love it.
We're the scraps. We're the stuff that you have your big steak meal, right? And we're like,
me and David Taylor eating our steak meals while you peasants are just running around picking up bones and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I see how it is.
Shout out Matt Furman, man. Matt Furman was blowing me up on Instagram like, hey, I'm winning with the PA Power singlet. I'm like, I love it. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, great tournament for Furman though, and I'm excited. If it wasn't for a guy named Rocco Welsh, he wouldn't have half the losses that he had
right
this season.
Very true.
But obviously it made him better, right? I think wrestling a high caliber guy like Rocco all the time definitely makes you better, and it shows here with a big tournament at the national tournament. Eli Makel of Waynesburg also had a great tournament, finishing in 7th place. No one at 220, and the 285, Bill Brosco of Haverford finished in 6th. Leighton Schmick of Carlisle finishing in 7th.
Yeah, so solid ending there to the Nationals. Pennsylvania historically does not send like very much anybody really to the Senior Nationals, and that was kind of the case this year. No Pennsylvania wrestlers made it onto the medal stand in the Senior Nationals, but in the Girls Nationals, Zoe Haynes took 5th at 120. She's someone who wrestles for Gettysburg, and in middle school, Pennsylvania had quite a few folks get on the medal stand. Excuse me, Jacqueline Bozakis, who's the younger sister of Nick Bozakis and Vince Bozakis. She took 4th at 75 pounds. Gabe Ballard took 2nd at 85. Cole Davidheiser, he took 1st at 95. He's a guy that we've seen his older brother wrestle for many years now. Samuel Wolford from Pennsylvania took 3rd at 95. And Max Wernsberger from Pennsylvania, Meadowbrook Christian, he took 2nd at 112.
So a number of guys like you mentioned, Jeff. You got Michael Turry finishing 2nd. Jackson Butler finishing 2nd at 127, as well as Camden Baum and Mason Howard 4th and 6th, respectively. Jacob Bacon at 138, finishing in 2nd place at 135. Dominic Sampolik finishing in 1st place at 154. And also you had Luke Fugazotto also finishing in 5th place at 165. And to wrap things up at 230, Jason Singer in 2nd, Caleb Taylor 4th, Tyler Byerly in 6th. So definitely a strong tournament overall for Team PA.
A lot of seconds there. We had 6 seconds in the middle school division. So, I mean, you go from having, I think there was only one champion from Pennsylvania in the middle school. You go from 1 or 2. There was 2. You go from 2 to potentially 9, right? It was a good showing though, nonetheless, from Pennsylvania.
So Jeff, we got the redemption coming up. Let's first off, is this the first time we're talking about the lineup, or has this been released prior?
So, no, nothing's been released. Nothing's been released yet. There's been a lot of, I don't know. There's been a lot of ups and downs with trying to coordinate it and get it together. But yeah, this will be the first time that we've ever talked about the 2022 redemption duel. So yeah, I'm excited to go over a few of the matches. We're not going to give them all to you, but we are gonna talk about the ones from the WPIAL that are on the card, and slowly some other matches are gonna start coming out in preparation for Sunday, April 3rd, live on Rockfin.
What time will it be starting? And where's it
12:30,
at?
12:30 at C3 Sports in State College. It's where we held the Surge. It's where we held the Redemption Duel last year, and we'll be back there this year. It's part of the Second Chance. This is Break the Chains, Second Chance Nationals, which is what really the Redemption Duel is all about. Is getting some redemption. The Second Chance Nationals is an open tournament for all divisions, from 6 under all the way up through high school. And just a chance for folks that did not end their season the way they wanted to get another shot at the at finishing their season on top before they end up in freestyle season. So we're excited to be partnering with the Break the Change, because it's really the two go hand in hand. The Redemption Duel and Second Chance Nationals, one's a dual tournament or a dual meet, and the other one's an open tournament, but they both go hand in hand essentially.
Well, you look at some of the WPIAL guys, like you mentioned, Jeff. The first one coming out, Connor Smith of Seneca Valley. He's going to be taking on Marco Tacci from Warwick. And then teammate Tyler Chappell is going to be taking on Brandon Wenzel of Montoursville. And we've seen that one before.
Yeah, so that will be round 3 in the matter of like a year. We saw him at True Power, and that was a hell of a match. And then we saw it again at Powerade, which again was a hell of a match. So why not make it a third one here? Those two always put on a show. I think that one's going to be a good one. Connor Smith and Marco Tassi is also one that intrigues me. These two wrestled in Fargo. I believe it was Fargo, and I think it was Greco actually that they wrestled in a good match there. So two guys that are close but just haven't quite broken through yet. Marco made it to the state tournament. Connor had some shots and chances to make it out of the WPIAL, but just was unable to pick up some wins. He was very, very close, and he probably would have been in the top 15 in the state had he made it to the state tournament. So, I'm looking forward to that. And Tyler Chappell, Brandon Wenzel, round 3. Let's do it.
Another WPIAL wrestler who's definitely looking for some redemption, Vinny Citrano of Plum. He's taking on Mason Barvitsky of Southern Columbia.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about the Redemption Duel, is there anybody who's more willing or deserving of the Redemption Duel than Vinny Citrano? I mean, boy, he had one hell of a season, but it came to a halting stop for him in the WPIAL tournament. So I'm excited to see Vinny go out there and battle. Mason Barvitsky was very impressive to me at the state tournament. I left Hershey thinking, man, he's gotten a lot better since I saw him as a freshman. So I'm excited to see those two mix it up. I think there should be a lot of points on the board. It should be a lot of fun.
West Allegheny Sean Taylor, he's going to be wrestling as well, and he'll be taking on a guy who a lot of people haven't got to see the last couple of years, Eric Gibson of Bishop McCourt.
Yeah, so probably my second favorite match. The first one is one that we're not releasing tonight, but probably my second favorite match is Sean Taylor and Eric Gibson, because these two are on completely different paths in their lives, right? I mean, Eric Gibson's a guy who came into his freshman year, was third in the state as a freshman. He never got back to that, right? Injury defaults his sophomore year, loses his junior year for eligibility, and then loses his senior year. I mean, this is a guy who's going to Cornell, has wrestled in some college opens, but we haven't seen him compete at a high level consistently, right? Sean Taylor, on the other hand, he's only a sophomore. He's been wrestling like crazy. Powerade, the state tournament, and now we saw the NHSCA tournament, winning against Ryan Garvick. I think he's a guy who's trying to be what Eric Gibson was, right? And Eric Gibson's trying to be the Eric Gibson that we all know he is and capable of being before he heads off to Ithaca to Cornell. I'm excited to have Eric. He's been on basically every one of our events that we've done. I really enjoy Eric. I'm going to miss the hell out of him when he leaves for Cornell, because he's been kind of part of PA Power since the Surge, True Power. He won the Surge a whole bunch of times. He won at True Power a whole bunch of times, and I'm going to miss having him around on our cards.
And then you have the guy who wore the PA Power singlet, Matt Furman. He's going to be taking on Suds Dubler of Glendale.
Yeah, so this one excites me as well. Suds Dubler just recently committed to Clarion, so big time recruit for them, and Suds has had a good year, and but Matt Furman has had a pretty darn good year as well, right? And I'm excited to see these two mix it up, and we're trying to do a little bit of double A versus triple A, but that's not it's not always possible. But for the most part, we've got a double A versus triple A in most of these matches, so. That's just a little appetizer of what we're bringing to you on Sunday at 12:30 on Rockfin, or you can show up at State College at C3 Sports. It should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, we should, and we'll have be talking about a lot more between now and Sunday. When's the full card expected to be released, Jeff?
So probably tomorrow. We'll probably end up releasing the full card. And start putting out some of the other matches. So, stay tuned. We're going to hype it up. And once you see the full card, you're going to say, man, I can't miss this one. It's going to be really good. And we may not be the only card in town either. So stay tuned for that as well. You may get a little bit more for what you thought you were. So it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
And when he says we, everybody, it just means him. Jeff does the whole thing. There's no other PA Power,
gosh. You're starting to sound like Tristan Warner, So Tristan, which shout out Tristan Warner, because I'm wearing my Shippensburg Wrestling shirt, all right, because I love Tristan. Seth Bloomquist is my man. But what happened was Tristan complained for 3 years about gear, and he never had any gear.
That's
so
right.
I go to South Central Regional, and I bring him a gift package, a shirt, a sweatshirt, a couple shirts, and I just dump it all on him. He's like, man, is this all for me? I'm like, yeah, man, it's all for you. What happens? 2 weeks later, I see him in Hershey. What's up, man? Yeah, he's big time in me. What the hell, man? And I asked him to come up Sunday for the redemption duel, and he's like, nah, man, I got a birthday party. That's the second time in 2 years he's given me the I've got a birthday party excuse. What grown man goes to who has birthday parties these days? I don't get it. The only birthday parties I've went to in the last 5 years was my son's first birthday party. That's it.
Well, I know you even blew off my daughter's birthday party.
I did.
So I understand.
I did.
Yeah.
We it was outside of the wrestling season, Greg. We are only wrestling season friends.
That's right. Yeah, and that is a true story, people, by the way. This is going back years, but years ago I hit up Jeff in the off season, tried to get together with him. I got big time, didn't even acknowledge me, and then come Powerade. Oh, hey man, how you been? Oh, you just ignore me? Oh, I didn't see it. Well, actually I did see it. I just didn't want to respond to you. So, yeah. So Tristan, I don't blame you for doing it to Jeff because he does it to us.
All right, I mean, you reap what you sow. I get a taste of my own medicine. Is what it is, man. But I appreciate the support, Greg. You always show up, so I appreciate that.
That's right. Even through different issues, I'm still here,
You're
buddy.
always
for
there.
you.
So
Always.
Yep.
But hey, it's been a fun season. Make sure everybody check out the Redemption, and obviously got a lot of fun stuff coming throughout the summer too, Jeff. So maybe we'll still have some shows here and there pop up. Whenever you want me to come around, I'll still be around.
I would love to. I'd love to have you around outside of our normal months of friendship. Let's make it a year-long friendship. Let's do that.
I mean, that's on you. I've made the effort.
You have. So. Balls in my court.
That's
in my
right.
court. Gotcha.
Well, great classic, great NHSCA national championship or national tournaments. And obviously we got the Redemption coming up here this week. So wrestling doesn't end. Make sure you stick with PA Power throughout the off season as we get you set and ready to go. Is a lot of great wrestling still upcoming. For Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for watching and listening in to WarUp on the WPIAL.